Howdy and hello, I'm OhDough, hope you're doing good. I want to give my thoughts on V-Rising after 271 hours for folks that are new to the game and might want to buy it, or for folks that have already played it and aren't sure if 1.0 added enough new stuff to make it worth playing again. For the new players, the game's a survival game with gameplay first that feels fantastic. I love the art style personally, and progression is amazing. For the older players that might want to try it again, the progression somehow got better, the gameplay is now crazier, and you can have the bosses you faced, for the most part, have new abilities, which was news to me. I can't explain how absurd it was when I first played this after 1.0, and I'm facing the same mobs I faced before, and they got different abilities. That's only based on a certain difficulty, though. In this game, you have 3 difficulties. You have Weenie Hut Jr., which is the easiest one. You have Regular, which is the middle one, and it's normal. And then you have Brutal, which is the actual name. And that gives you new abilities on mobs, the V-Bloods, the bosses and whatnot, and the game gets a lot harder. And for the folks that maybe don't have time to play survival games all crazy like, and that word's a bit scary if you're new, you can tailor the experience to your own liking. You can play on a private server, your own little thing, and you can make it so getting wood gives you more. So you're spending less time farming wood and more time playing the game. I'm making a whole video on settings and whatnot that I recommend if you don't have time to play a survival game and do all the chores and you want more gameplay instead. More on that later, I guess. Progression for the new players, or just in general. You start off in dregs. You just get raised from a coffin, you have nothing to your name, and top left it tells you what you gotta do. Get some bones is the first thing. You get some bones, make a bone mace, bone sword, get some more bones, make some bone armor, and that's essentially the gameplay loop in a sense, except you get different materials from different zones, and I think there's around 5, 6, or 7 zones that you'll be traveling to that have different mobs, different bosses. Start off in Farbrain Woods, then you go to Dunley Farmlands. You'll need some materials from Gloomrot South, but you also get to do these level 57 rift incursions in Runes of Mordium. Then you probably head towards Cursed Forest. After that, you probably go to Silverlight Hills, then back to Runes of Mordium for more rift incursions, which you can do the lower level ones whatever you want. And finally, not finally, you go to Gloomrot North, and then you go and kill a certain bat in Runes of Mordium, and a few other bosses as well. It's kind of a mixed bag. The game tells you where to go, and you can track V-Bloods to know where you're supposed to be heading, and also see certain materials. You will get slightly lost once you need to get Radium Alloy, which is from Gloomrot South. That's where things get a little tricky. And these are all the V-Bloods, the bosses, which doesn't include all the crazy mobs you face that feel tough as well. And there's different acts to separate them. So I think there's roughly 4 acts, and there's 57 different bosses. Ignore this name. Wait. And you just get better armor, better weapons, spells, and progress that way. Now, initially, it might seem a bit bland because you don't have the full kit. Your weapons won't have that many abilities, if any at all. It's just going to be attacking, and you'll get new spells, as seen in the spellbook right here, if you keep playing the game. And folks like all kinds of different spells. I'm a bit of a one-trick, and I like the Lightning Ball, or Ball of Lightning, and then I love the Unholy Spells. Bone Explosion, goated. War of the Damned, kind of fun. Death Knight, lit. Veil of Bones, lit. The way the spells work is by killing V-Bloods, which are the bosses, and getting different tiers of spell points, which then you can unlock stuff. To explain that real quick, this boss right here, Lydia the Chaos Archer, gives you a cast spell point tier 1. Tier 1 spells are all going to be this section, and Chaos is this school of magic. It says Chaos Magic. So tier 1 would be this right here, and then some bosses give you tier 2 spells, and that's right here. The spell points mean you can pick the spell you want to unlock at that time, because you won't have everything unlocked. There's progression involved. Work for it and get to it. Now, what you can do really easily is you can build yourself a Altar of Recollection. Hit that real quick, and for free 99, no cost to you whatsoever. There's no currency involved. You can reset a school of magic, and if you only have a few spell points, that's what you want to do. If you're facing a boss and you really wish you had a different spell unlocked and you don't have them all unlocked to change around your build and whatnot, you can spend your points like this. I only have 1 spell point for blood on tier 1. I really want to bring Shadow Bolt for big damage. Problem solved. You can improve spells even further once you get gems that go from tier 2, I believe, all the way to tier 4. And tier 4 just gives you more bonuses. So in this case, we have Death Knight. Once it expires, you get to summon a Skeleton Mage in its place. So you essentially get 2 undead teammates for 1 spell. Then you have your Veil of Bones. Whenever you activate this by dashing and attacking an enemy, it'll summon a Skeleton Mage again, which is much more beneficial than a Skeleton Warrior because it casts spells from a distance and it's more consistent damage. I freaking love unholy spells. I can't even begin to explain to you. And this goes for every single spell except for your ultimates and of course your passives. Passives are unlocked by doing pseudo mid-game and in-game content that are always active and have other bonuses that are effective based on what's going on. So here we have, these require the in-game stuff, but the first tier is beginner stuff going on. So blood spray, you get to heal yourself occasionally if you crit and whatnot, more attack speed, base, you have more damage dealt to enemies if they have weaken applied, 15% chance to summon a skeleton mage when a condemned target perishes over a skeleton warrior. The list goes on. There's a lot to do in terms of just the variety of spells you can mess with, the gems you can get, and tailoring your build to your own liking. But I haven't really discussed the weapons themselves, which I forget how many weapons there are. I think there's roughly 8 total now. You have sword, great sword, whip, bow, guns, spear, axes, scythe, and hammer. That is 8 mathly detected, if I count it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What the freak? Oh, iron slashes, crossbow. All right, well, I forgot a few things. That's my bad. There's a lot of weapons, brother. You have your basic attack for every single weapon. That's pretty standard. And then they all have different abilities. And most of the time, they have a different sort of passive effect going on. For instance, the bow. The bow might be unique in that sense. Bow, you get marks of marksmen or something like that. So hitting an enemy with your basic attack will give you these marks, and then using your abilities will spin the marks to give you a better effect, mostly just more damage, or it makes your scatter shot for the arrows hit more enemies. But in general, the weapons have different playstyles that you can pursue, and you can have multiple weapons equipped and swap between them. How that works is, I have my bow, let's say I use my basic attack, I Q. Q's on cooldown. I swap weapons. I can't Q on my scythe, but I can toss out my E. So that gives you things you have to think about with weapons and weapon variety and choices and how to min-max your gameplay and make it more fun. And if you don't want to, if you want, you can just use one weapon and not deal with that ever. But using 2 weapons is kind of nice, if not 3, based on what you're fighting. Because pistol, for instance, if I want an iframe, E. That's an iframe. That whole thing right there. Iframes and counters are a big deal in the combat for V-Rising, but you have a bunch of options on just exactly which ones you may want. Later on, you get this one right here, which is a Veil Chaos. You get 2 dashes if using a certain time frame, and each school of magic gives you a different dash. That's your iframe, a tool of choice, and they all have a tie to their passive in this certain school of magic. You also have counters and shields. So counters, discharge right here, blood ripe. When using a counter and you get hit within a certain time frame, in this case 1.5 seconds, it'll trigger that and you won't take damage, and then trigger an effect, usually doing damage and giving you a bonus of some kind. Now shields, which I love, me and Frost Shield go way back. Big fan. And the combat itself is wild. If you like telegraphs, things being on the ground and showing you where to move or not to move, your own stuff being telegraphed too, kind of like this in a sense, but better displayed by the enemies, you'll love the combat in this game. It'd be wise to mention you're a vampire, and vampires in the sun don't get along. You're like Howie from Benchwarmers. The shade is trying to absolutely ruin my example, but normally I love the shade. Your best friend will be the shadows and the nighttime, which is permanent shadows for a long time. Blood is a big deal. Blood quality and blood type. This is a warrior at 75%. The max is 100. 100 is the best. You're looking for that if you can help it. And there's ways to figure out who's got what blood. You can hover over them. Eventually you get spells to see what they are by just walking by them. You can also make potions once you imprison folks and tap their blood. These are all the blood types, and 100 is the best you can get, unlocking more of the perks. If it's not highlighted open, it's because the quality isn't high. Now, survival is going to be a big part of the game, and that's tied to progression 1-to-1 with your gear and whatnot, because you can't make gear unless you get new items to craft it. It's wild just how important the most basic material will be. Who the is this, the boss or just random guy? Material like sawdust coming from wood in a sawmill. That is used in conjunction with herbs, they're called herbs, and a paper press to give you scrolls. as seen as such right here. We have the herbs, sawdust. You get paper. Then paper plus coarse thread gives you scrolls, and scrolls plus tech scrap gives you schematics. So using the most basic materials, you can work your way up to then make things you need for in-game. And this is applied to a bunch of stuff in this game. Not everything, but a bunch of stuff. And you can do things in a way to make it not so tedious, such as having your servants get you stuff while you're AFK and doing nothing. So eventually you can get these little servant coffins. Pretty early you get servant coffins. You get these jail cells. You can then store folks in these. And that's all done through subduing human. You can subdue, put them in a coffin, chill, but we don't have a spare coffin, and send these gamers out to fetch you materials. But you need to give them gear to do it in the first place. And that's a task in itself. There's really no way to put into words just how good progression feels in this game, which I think is very important. Unlocking new amulets, which this one's broken, unfortunate, they decay. You can't change that quite yet. But these are soul shards, which are the end game peak amulets. You can unlock and artifact weapons or ultimate weapons, something like that, which are a wee bit insane. They modify both your abilities with fun stuff. The scythe can inflict condemn on the range attack and some of the skeletons at the same time. Freaking awesome. They also give you maxed out attributes, and these are farmed from either buying purple weapons with greater Stygian shards. It's 1500, and there's a chance to give you that over the purple weapons, or from just farming the Rift Incursions tier 2 and getting lucky. You can actually get 2 of these to spawn at the same time after killing the boss or mini boss that spawns. And it gives you something to do towards the end game. But the time it takes to get to end game, even when you increase settings to make it a bit faster, is still meaningful. It gives you that sense of progression, and there's just so much to do and so much to improve on if you're that kind of player. Or if you're just there for the one-time experience, that is fantastic too. I do recommend brutal difficulty if you just want to play it one time and be done. But I don't know if they're still working on the game. If they are, though, I know they have console launch coming up, but man, oh man, there's so much to do. And speaking of quality of life stuff, they added a whole bunch of storage that's specific to certain items, making it easy to put things away. So for instance, let's say I just have all these items away. Normally, if you have one item in a chest, let's say we take out all these little blood things, blood essences, we put one inside, and now highlight things that can go in this chest based on what's already in there. We hit E on mouse and keyboard, or just go on controller and figure out what this button says for you. It's quick send, and it all gets shuffled in. But on these other more specified chests, I'm dying. It'll tell you what goes in there automatically. This is going to be a large material chest. These are identified as materials. E. Problem solved. Now my stack's going to be bigger than yours because I'm built like that, you know what I'm saying, rolling in the cheddar. I changed my settings a little bit to have my stacks higher. They're double the size. But same concept still applies. Just don't get caught up on how many of one thing is stacked. And it just makes life easier. The one thing this game really needs for quality of life is the ability to craft things at a station based on just having it in a chest in your base. If you played Grounded, if you played Power World, you would know what I'm talking about. Like right here, I probably have gold somewhere. Let's just say, for example's sake, I have gold in the chest right here. I don't. Imagine I did. In those other games, you could click this and craft if you had it in a chest in the base, versus having to have it in the station itself or in your inventory. It just makes it a little bit more tedious when you have to have everything on your person or in the crafting station. Once they add that, which I'm hoping they do, I'll have no complaints in terms of crafting whatsoever. I think that progression through crafting has done phenomenally well in this game. It feels like I want to play it again. I just played it. I just spent like 110 hours playing. I want to go through it again, but this time better and do probably a full playthrough. And the building of your base can be more complex as well. I didn't get fancy with it that much. I put some wallpapers here and there to spruce up this room, which looks pretty freaking lit, if I'm being honest. But you can have multiple floors. I just have one. More of a single, I like a single story house in real life and in video games. It just keeps it simple. I'm a very simple person, but you can get so freaking fancy. Where am I going here? So stairs, different skins and whatnot. I think that the cosmetics do have DLCs tied behind them, which is, there's a cost to them. But V-Rising is a cheap game for how much you get in terms of content and how much effort they put into new updates and whatnot. So I actually bought most of these DLCs. They gave me a code for the recent one, and I still have it, and I ended up buying it to support them. And I'll probably give the code to someone. I'm not sure how. That's how I feel, at least. But even without the skins, the stuff looks cool regardless. So you can have multiple stories, and you can increase how many stories you have in your own settings. You can go up to 6 floors if you want. Baseline's 2 or 3. And you have decorations. Some are also tied to DLC, buying them and whatnot. But the baseline ones are still pretty cool. And man, the game is so good. If you haven't played it, I recommend it if you have the time to play a game like this. It's a freaking banger of a time. And the aesthetic looks good too. The only drawback to some people is the top-down nature, which I don't mind. I think top-down's fine. But some folks don't like it. It is what it is. And there's so many more things I haven't talked about, which is a good thing. It just means that there's more for y'all to explore and to experience in the game itself. If you already played it and you haven't played 1.0, I suggest playing it again or finding time to play it again, because there's a lot of things that you have not experienced, such as the gear I haven't even talked about. I kind of showed it, but not really. So here we have the gear sets, which do add a lot. I'll show the beginning ones to give you an idea. So we have... we'll go over here. This will be the very beginning game. Where would it be at the... no? Workbench. Workbench. So we have Night Stalker gear. Baseline, no buffs. Shade Walker vest. You get more physical crit chance, movement speed with bonuses, and increased gear level. Then we have weapon attack speed and more max health. We have physical power, increased weapon cooldown recovery rate, and the Warlock vest for more spell leech and spell power. And this is the baseline, very basic gear you get kind of early, so it gets way wackier as you progress. For example, we have 5% crit chance on just one piece of gear. You can have a full set giving you 20% crit chance for physical attacks with 8% movement speed, and then that's just the specific armor. The full set, 30% more crit strike power for weapons or physical attacks, 10% primary attack leech, and it just gets wacky, man. I really do hope they add more to this game, because I just want to keep coming back. I really do. And it's a game that I'm playing solo. For folks wondering, is the game good solo? I like it more solo. You can play this in a PvP. I should have said this earlier. This game can be played PvP, player versus environment. So you have the PvE aspect on top of PvP. Or you can join a PvE server where there's still folks around and they can help you kill things, which the bosses scale based on players in the encounter. So if you have multiple folks there, it gets more difficult based on the people. Or you can just do your own thing and play by yourself, which I'm playing by myself. Just I don't want to have to deal with other people, man. Not this time. Before, I played every time in a public server, and it was still fine, but the PvP aspect was not for me. Some folks love it. It's not for me. And that is all there is for me to say right now. There's more to talk about, but I think I talked enough. The game's great, if you can't tell. I truly do enjoy this game. 270 hours. I barely ever made content for it either. I think I made one video. I just play it. I like it a lot. I might do a full playthrough. I'm hoping to show you guys what it looks like for me. But anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. There'll be more content on the way probably. And have a good one. Peace.